Rob, good morning, man. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Todd. What a week.
Yeah, I just think we got to keep going. The only way out of it is through it, I guess. Um,
Well, he embodied the anti-fragile kind of mentality where the greater the pressure, the greater the strength.
Good point.
More tests, more trials, more tribulations. No matter, he's to me the living embodiment of, although we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil.
Yeah,
He would go into the most woke, the most MK Ultra, the most psyoped and programmed world, which forces of darkness have always targeted the youth and the
yes,
impressionable and the
yes,
vulnerable.
yes.
And that was like I think President Trump said this morning, he won the youth vote. Republicans never ever win the youth vote. You talk about threatening the franchise of the global power brokers, take away the 30 and under crowd. And Charlie was a real threat.
Wow, well said. I completely agree. I've been thinking the exact same thing. I mean, been trying to figure out who he threatened, and that's definitely it with the kids, and then also there's a lot of other people he threatened. So,
Well,
you
and
know,
Todd, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
hmm
He boldly and beautifully and powerfully promoted Jesus Christ.
yeah, exactly. That's my point. Yeah. So, if you've noticed, we've been talking about this. Well, to the audience, if you've noticed, we've been talking about Christianity and the attack on it globally, and I think this was another battle in that war over the last few days. So yes, we're going to stay on that issue and have more guests on later in the show with Robert Amsterdam to talk about that specifically. But let me read you something that was on Zero Hedge this morning, which I found interesting. And this is obviously a response to what's happening with the Fed and with some of the crypto issues in the Treasury. But Russia just dropped a bomb at the Eastern Economic Forum. The U.S. is plotting a 37 trillion debt reset by weaponizing crypto and rewriting the gold playbook. A two-pronged strategy: tokenize the debt into stablecoins, then devalue it, followed by a gold revaluation to restore trust. Sound familiar? It should. We've seen this game before in 34 and 71, only this time it's happening in the cloud. Tom Teague's been on, another contributor, talking about this is a way to provide demand for the treasury market where all our debt sits. What say you on all this? What do you think?
Well, Todd, it's profoundly simple
Mm-hmm.
when terminology is clarified. Okay. What we have is sovereign debt and counterfeit debt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have debt that can be issued by a legitimate nation like America, and we can have a Federal Reserve that prints stuff, counterfeit money out of thin air. Okay. We have over 40% of the currency that's in circulation in America, in the world, in American dollars, has been put there since COVID.
Yeah.
5 years, 40% of all the American currency floating around, debasing our value, causing inflation, debasing our purchasing power, and destroying our standard of living because they clicked a couple of buttons and they printed money out of thin air. Okay. So the ultimate issue that repairs America's economy and the world economy is sound money.
Mm-hmm.
Sound money for the average person that doesn't study this is something that has three elements to it. The three elements are: sound money has to be a unit of account, which means the accounting has to be perfect. I mean, math is math. 2 + 2 = 4. The records have to be perfect and universally trusted. A unit of account, a store of value, an ounce of gold or X amount of ounces of silver, whatever that store of value is, it's got to be the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's supposed to be 2 + 2 = 4. And a medium of exchange. If people don't trust the record keeping or the accounting, and they think you're tipping the scale or you're shaving off the edges of the gold and the measure of gold and silver is being polluted, or you're putting lead in the middle of the gold bar and calling it gold. All of this runs on trust, Todd.
Yeah.
Okay. So The Federal Reserve does not create sound money. The Federal Reserve is a fraud. The Federal Reserve is a foreign, non-governmental institution that was essential to the hijacking of the constitutional republic known as America. There's a reason that we have never audited the Fed. We can't look at the books. There is no gold behind whatever it issues. It is a counterfeit control system that issues unbacked, unaccountable junk debt. That is very different than a treasury bill from the Treasury of the United States.
So you're saying this is really interesting, and I've thought about it in certain shades of this, but I've talked about strategic devaluation. What you're saying is that this was an attack on the U.S. by issuing all this counterfeit debt in order to destroy us, and this reaction to it and the plan that the Trump administration may be doing is to defeat that threat or that attack, and the enemies of the U.S. don't like it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Why was President Kennedy shot?
Yeah.
Why do we need a United States Treasury that's put in place to manage our domestic monetary system and create currency backed by gold and silver? And then all of a sudden we need these foreigners that are not federal, that have no reserves from outside the United States, right after the Organic Act of 1871 created the District of Columbia. And then in the dark of night, we have to create this perverted, secret, collaborative cartel that got together in 1910 in Jekyll Island, Georgia, and ran through a Federal Reserve Act. That was the Obamacare of its day. Obamacare wasn't about health care. It was about control. It was about monitoring. It was about surveillance of American. It was an entrapment system. The label of the bill has nothing to do with the intentions of the legislation. The Federal Reserve Act was about controlling and harvesting the energy and taking control over. Along with the Federal Reserve came the income tax, came the IRS, came the rules and the regulations, and the lien, first claim lien on our life and liberty in a nation that was born with unalienable rights.
And then it went global, right?
And then it became the world reserve currency.
Well, I mean, the central bank system.
Now the whole world has to be in obeyance to this non-governmental organization that hijacked America in 1913. Now the world's got to obey.
Yeah.
And if you talk about that, if you talk about getting rid of the Federal Reserve, which is owned by entities outside the United States of America, then you're putting a spotlight on the fact that America is not really America.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you talk about it, whether you're Kennedy or whether you're Abraham Lincoln or whether you're Donald Trump or whether you're a MAGA supporter or whether you want to put the spotlight on Jerome Powell because he's too slow, anything that threatens this global monopoly, whether you're Charlie Cook going after the youth or you're MAGA or you're Trump or you're trying to get rid of the Fed and you're trying to look, fraud vitiates everything.
Yeah.
The junk debt that's in America that's been pumped onto the backs of you and me and mortgages and credit cards and student loans and the world, if that junk debt was issued illegitimately, wipe it off the books. If there's legitimate debt because America bought oil reserves or gold, or America sold F-15s to Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia owns this money, honor those deals.
Yeah.
But do not honor something that was printed out of thin air. When we go to the bank and get a mortgage, there's not a pile of cash sitting in the vault. They're not waiting for us to show up so they can go and get the cash and they just hit a button and create a mortgage amount of money out of thin air, and then we pay 8% on that mortgage for 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's a usury, counterfeiting, cartel control system. And if you threaten the cartel threatens you.
Well, it's even I know you know this, but our audience might not. It's even worse than that because they print this money, and then guess what? If, like you said, if you threaten us or threaten the system somewhere like Libya, they use the U.S. State Department, the full weight of the U.S. government, the U.S. military to do regime change, to wreak havoc, to destroy, to assassinate, to start wars. And on down the line, that's the seed of the forever wars, right? It's an instrument they use.
Todd, the old adage that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If the root of evil is the love of money and you wanted to control the world, you'd want to control the world's money,
Yeah.
right? And so if you give the same, it's called the Triffin dilemma. The conflict is embedded in the scenario here. If you give the world's most powerful nation control over the world's most powerful military and the world reserve currency, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's the definition of Washington, D.C. Absolute corruption.
Yeah. I was listening to Dr. Kirk Moore on Tucker last night talking about just the complete corruption of the medical system by money and how you can't even trust your doctor anymore. And
Well, it's rooted in pharmakia, Todd. I mean,
yeah,
if you go back again, we're my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. What is pharmakia? It's sorcery. It's chemical. It's like none of us were born with a chemical deficiency,
yeah,
and yet they have convinced us that they have to not cure anything, but treat us for life with their petroleum products that generate a bunch of young kids that want to run and kill people. I
yeah.
mean, look at the autism rate. Todd, I was reading a report from, I think it was Dr. McCullough and somebody else
Mhm.
last week that said in the 50s, the United States government budgeted exactly $0 for catastrophic illnesses and pandemics or crisis illnesses. Today, it's $1.4 trillion a year.
What a
And
deal.
we
Yeah.
went, how did we go in the 50s from relatively a healthy nation to an autism of 1 in 100,000 to 1 in 33?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's up in your grill for sure. Let me ask you something. Georgia always comes back to this for some reason. You had the Georgia Guidestones. The Federal Reserve was started in Georgia. It's like it's the center of something. You have the most corrupt government in Georgia that's backing China
Fulton
Chemical.
County,
Yeah,
the only state in America, for those that don't know this, haven't been paying attention, the only state in America that had 100% of its counties buy Dominion systems and put in the Dominion voting system.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and now you got Raffensperger wanting to run for governor. I don't know how that's going to go, but what is it about Georgia? I've tried to look at this. I know it's a transportation hub back, and that's why Atlanta was started. But it's just kind of weird, man. And you and I are from there, and
Yeah.
it's just. Do you have any sense as to why Georgia is so important to the dark side?
I will tell you that some cursory research that I've done, Todd,
Mhm.
indicated that well before the Republic, the colony of, or even before the colony of Georgia, this area was basically um, a dystopian, if you will, outcast. It's almost like Australia when they used to send all of the scum of the earth, they'd send them
Yeah.
out to a penal colony.
Hmm.
Okay. It's almost as if Georgia needs an exorcism. The
Yeah.
state of Georgia, there's a demonic spirit, a darkness about it. There's a cover that red, white, and blue, Georgia, patriotic, and MAGA. We've had, we've had a Republican governor, Senate, and Congress forever, and they vote like a blue state.
Yeah. Completely.
And if you follow the money, that's the only thing that I can explain in that our government does not reflect who we are. To give you another point, California is this close, only second to Texas in the total number of true conservative voters
Hmm.
from a population standpoint. But they're demon possessed in 3 cities.
Yeah.
They own the media, they own the government, they own the control. They've got the George Soros apparatus around the neck. But in total number of conservatives, California is not a liberal state. It's a liberal government. And that's the issue that we're facing in Georgia. We have been hijacked from within, and call a spade a spade. We have demonic people that are worshiping something other than the wishes of the people that live in Georgia.
Well, that's of course all you got to do is look at some of the images coming out, some of the Georgia GOP leadership parties they had, which were pretty bad, pretty shocking.
Yeah.
Trump this morning is talking about, well, maybe we got to go after George Soros. You think that'll actually happen?
Absolutely, 1,000%.
Hmm.
Yeah, 1,000%. Look, if you want to know who's in the slipstream of a hidden bank that prints counterfeit money, that funnels money into dark places without accountability, like the CIA, who then opens up the floodgates of that money to 55,000 NGOs that include all kinds of derivatives of the open society and George Soros and Lord Malik Brown and this entire cartel of demonic freaks. If you want to know who's in the middle of that formula that's distributing counterfeit money to 55,000 NGOs the world over, look no further than George Soros.
Yeah. And for a long time, since his youth with the Nazis. What about you? I have a sense, and I've had this sense for a long time, the school shootings, there's something there. To me, it's pattern recognition. It's young kids that are vulnerable, maybe living in their mother, maybe a broken family, maybe mental issues or whatever. But it seems to be that same type of person over and over again, just like with this shooter, just like with the Trump shooter. I think there's a pattern there and something's going on. Somebody's behind what's happening to these kids. I mean, there's been reports of, FBI agents and chats or whatever, but have you any sense of that?
Yeah, Todd, there's a malignancy in the program, a glitch in the matrix. And let's go back to 24 years ago at 9/11.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
I mean, the last 25 years, the kids that have been born in the last 25 to 30 years have been, in many respects, lobotomized, programmed. They've been MK Ultra'd, if you will. They've been drugged. They've been social medialized. They have been,
pornography,
obsession, consumption of lust. If it feels good, do it. The dark art of divide and conquer through all of these media channels and all of these just false idol worship trails that are basically doing a number. And when you go in and start messing with the programming and the circuit board of kids at 2 or 3 or 5 that spend 8 hours a day on social media, and I talked to a guy that ran a youth group in the Southeast United States, and he said, if you think about it, these kids are trying to run 8 or 9 different personalities. They have to have a personality for their parents, for their church, for their school, for their football team, for TikTok, for Facebook, for Instagram, for you name it. And there's a different set of groups and values and pressures. And I want to be cool in this group, and I want to be cool in this group, and I want to make my mom and dad proud, and I want to go to church and put on my best Sunday, and then I want to go drink beer with my football. But so the level of psychosis in trying to manage 9 personalities is beyond if you don't have laws and principles and you don't know who you are and whose you are, and you're trying to manage, you talk about the ultimate Sybil kind of psychosis that takes place. For people that are unanchored in absolute laws and principles, they don't stand a chance in this environment.
Yeah, I think you're exactly. Just look at the social media right now after the Kirk assassination. I mean, it's horrific. Let's talk more in depth on crypto real quick. What's the latest on XRP and the whole, I guess, implementation of the system?
Well, the answer, Todd, to a broken counterfeit Federal Reserve system that no one trusts is trustlessness. Trustlessness requires 100% transparency and accountability in a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange. India doesn't need to trust America, and America doesn't need to trust China, and China doesn't need to trust Russia, and Russia doesn't need to trust Israel. The math is math is math. Let me see the books. Give me 180 sets of books. Get rid of all the middlemen. I want to trade. I want to trade. And a stable coin is a digital dollar representation of a sovereign currency. Okay. And it's one-to-one backed, inspected on a monthly basis. There's your accountability. You can't print them out of thin air. If you don't have $1 billion or $100 million or $100 in U.S. Treasuries, it's a tier 1 asset. You can't create a stable coin.
That's the whole demand issue that Teague has been talking about, because you've got all these treasuries out there that, could collapse in value if things don't go well, and the demand could collapse, and we'd have currency issues and reserve currency, all of that. But if you have a stable coin where they have to back it by treasury, so they have to buy it.
And it's even better than that.
Yeah.
Because guess who else wants a stable coin besides nations? Amazon, Apple,
sure.
Microsoft. Why? Because if all Microsoft or Amazon or Apple or Google has to do is go buy treasury bonds to back their Google stable coin, and then they can make payments, they can make payroll, they can pay their vendors and cut out 8% or 7% of that middleman cost that goes to Jamie Dimon at the Federal Reserve. Now you've got every conglomerate and corporation and nation that is lining up to buy the sovereign debt of a nation.
Yeah.
So you diversify the customer base that wants to buy American treasuries, and the definition of stable coin is the same whether you're Argentina, Apple, America, or Azerbaijan. The rules for a stable coin are stable coin or stable coin. It's got to be backed by a tier 1 asset.
Yeah.
And a tier 1 asset's a US dollar, a T-bill, a note, gold, or silver. And it has to be inspectable. You have to be able to validate and verify it is the asset backing that debt is there. It's not a trust me, bro.
Let me throw a comment up here how do you keep it separate from a digital surveillance system?
Beautiful question. That is a brilliant question, because number one, if you have total transparency and you have cryptographic security and you have ownership property rights, my identity is my identity. Okay. My ability to, the issue of security is absolutely paramount. And the fact that that is still an issue that people want to make absolutely certain that my wallet is my wallet, my data is my data, my gold is my gold, my 401k is my 401k, my medical records are my medical records. The thing that we have to start doing, Todd, is getting away from this Swiss cheese world of accounts where you and I and everybody listening to this call may have 50 different accounts. And all of those are vulnerable to hack. All of those are vulnerable to invasion. And you have a bunch of infrastructure people out there that are trying to sell middleware and sell servers and sell firewalls and sell monitoring systems and security for the router, and then the AI that's monitoring the intrusions, and then people trying to fix the leak of the credit card users and social security numbers at American Express. Todd, the human can never outpace the speed of AI.
True.
In quantum computers, it can do 1 trillion calculations a second.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is figure out, if we think doing nothing and staying old school is going to be our answer to not being surveilled like we're being surveilled now, we've lost our minds. We're not putting any thought into it. Okay. What we have to do is figure out what is unalienable, what is sovereign, what are my rights, and how can that be secured and safe in my hands, unalienable rights without anybody else having a first lane or me being surveilled in a digital police state. That is the question. Okay.
So Amy has another question. Who controls the stable coin?
Well, it's, first of all, the first stable coin in America was the RLUSD, approved in December of 2024 by the New York Department of Financial Services. The most stringent, compliant, difficult regulatory body in the world to get into compliance. And this entity requires a monthly audit of one-to-one backing. Behind every stable coin in circulation, there has to be a one-to-one tier 1 asset, like a T-bill, a treasury, or a note.
Yeah.
Okay. So who controls the stable coin? Well, there's issuers and there's regulators, and then there's owners. So Ripple Labs can issue the stable coin. The New York Department of Financial Services, underneath the United States Treasury, who reports to the President of the United States, can monitor and regulate the veracity of that asset, that asset is what it says it is. And then the owners of those stable coins can be anybody that wants to buy an RLUSD or interact with the digital dollar of America. Because now it goes from the issuer into the hands of a government, a conglomerate, or me or Todd Wood. Now, if my digital wallet shows that I have $1,000 in RLUSDs, I have $1,000 in RLUSDs. But here's the thing. The New York Department of Financial Services and the U.S. Treasury are requiring monthly audits and provable assets backing that stable coin. Does that sound like a Federal Reserve note to you?
No, that solves that problem. But I think the real question people have is, okay, we came out recently that the Biden administration was spying on bank accounts across the board of anybody they didn't like. How do you prevent that with a stable coin, like surveilling where you're spending your money, where your money is?
The stable coin is not the issue. It's the security that's the issue. Okay.
Okay.
So if we'll objectively think about, it's not the dime, it's not the dollar, it's not the gold bar, it's not the stable coin, it's not the silver, it's not the platinum. It's the thievery and those people trying to see what you have.
Yeah.
It's not the end item, the stable coin, or 97% of everything in America today is digital, Todd. Today.
Yeah. Well,
if we stop right now, it's all digital.
Yeah.
And in the new environment, when they're going to print new currency that's going to have all kinds of traceability and new technology and new designs and it's going to be issued by the sovereign government known as the United States for America and not the Federal Reserve. And it's not going to say Federal Reserve note on it anymore. When that issuance is put out into the economy, then we have our country back.
Yeah.
We have our sovereignty back. Separate from that is cryptographic encoding, security, digital surveillance, quantum computing, artificial intelligence. And that's why, Donald Trump wants America to be the crypto capital of the world. We must win the AI war. You'll see Melania came out earlier this week and talked about how it's going to be AI learning and education and competency is going to be mandated throughout the school system. You have to know it as a citizen, to be a native citizen and compete in the world from this day going forward. Like it or not, you're going to have to understand the principles of AI, quantum computing, machine learning, and what we're capable of doing with these godlike quantum computers. We have to learn them. We can't stick our head in the sand anymore.
And that's going to come quicker than most people realize.
Correct. And so the issue is not, is digital assets good or bad? We have digital money today. The question is, how fast can we get our security perfected? Because evil is going to be evil, and evil's not going away. We're not going to eradicate evil, and evil's going to always try to put its hand in the cookie jar. The question is how fast can we build a cookie jar that they can't put their hand in? That's the question. It's not Stop everything right now until I have 100% assurance that the thieves aren't going to try to be thieves. Because until you can tell me the thieves aren't going to stop being thieves, I'm not going to eat a cookie.
Do you think Trump? Yeah, I get it. Do you think Trump is going to keep Lisa Cook
No.
out of the next
No,
meeting?
I think he's using Lisa Cook in a brilliant way to expose the supernatural essence of the Federal Reserve, its hubris and its arrogance. She is an echo of Trump saying he was going to remove Powell. And then the Bloomberg reporter asked, Powell, what do you think about the president says he's going to remove you? He goes, can he do that? He said, no.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Alan Greenspan used to say the same thing. When American people understand that the Fed believes they're not touchable by the President of the United States, it exposes the fraud. That the Federal Reserve is above the President of the United States, and that's not the way our Constitution is set up. That's not the way our Declaration is set up. So now we have not only Federal Reserve Chairman Powell giving the middle finger to the president, we got Lisa Cook, who's a DEI idiot, who can't balance a checkbook, telling the president, go kiss my ass. You can't get rid of me or Powell because we're with the Fed and we're above you. Well, the only way they can think that in their head is to understand that the Fed was superimposed on top of the United States of America and is above and beyond the reach of the President of the United States. And the last time I checked, Todd, neither Jerome Powell or Cook or whatever her name was were elected by anybody.
Yeah, it's a banking cartel, as you said, and it controls everything. They're trying to get her out before the next meeting. I don't know if that's going to happen because, Trump wants rates down and Powell's preventing that. So should be an interesting fight. Anything else, Rob, that needs to get out?
Well, it looks like there's about a 90% probability on the betting markets that we'll see likely up to a 50 basis point rate cut next week by the Fed. And when you see that, that's going to be a match. It's going to light fire. Okay.
Yeah. The economy.
We have President Trump has said we have about $17 trillion already secured in the totality of tariffs since he's been reelected and taken office in January. Here we are, 9 months in? He's got $17 trillion committed to the United States. Inflation is down. We just saw that they cooked the books by 1 million jobs that never happened under the previous administration. So unemployment is weak, inflation is down, revenue is up, and Powell has interest rates at the highest of any other nation in the world. And he won't bring them down, not because America doesn't need them to come down and we don't need relief and we don't need to have greater spending ability. He's using the fig leaf of it might cause inflation when there is none. And he kept those rates artificially high based on an artificial 1 million jobs that never took place.
Yeah.
If you bring that down to the reality that we had a weak economy a year ago, he needs to do catch-up rate cuts.
You would think that the Fed is supposed to be independent because they're supposed to be not political. I mean, this is obviously
that's the biggest lie in the world, Todd. That's complete.
I completely agree. I mean, my point is, you would think you could use that argument to take it apart because it's not following its charter, even though that charter is nefarious in itself.
The reason that logic doesn't work on a corrupt cartel is it's a corrupt cartel.
Yeah, no kidding. Rob, thank you, man. Really appreciate your time and your insight. Always enjoy it. It's always groundbreaking. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Take care. Bye.